Okay, welcome back everyone. So LR Pikkon, the new craze of Dokkan, is going to be coming to the game very soon. In fact, as I'm recording this vid, he will be dropping later tonight. So because he's coming so soon, I want to go ahead and focus on him as a summonable option, talking about if you should summon for Pikkon and if you should summon on his banner, knowing that we have the Golden Week celebration right around the corner in about a week or two from now. I understand, to be fair, that this is probably a topic I could have saved for my last vid where I did break down Pikkon's whole kit, his animations, his categories and everything, but at the same time, I feel like this is a topic that is worthy of its own vid, its own discussion, so today we're going to go ahead and focus on that. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the vid though. If you do, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, show your support, comment down below your thoughts. Let us all know, what are you planning to do when it comes to Pikkon? Are you planning to summon for Pikkon, or are you planning to skip Pikkon and save for something bigger down the line? With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, officially, when is Pikkon going to drop? Well, we have the data download complete and everything, we know the schedule, so Pikkon will be dropping later tonight at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, basically, which is, as you can see right here, at the time I'm recording this, 10.5 hours to 11 hours from now. So, he's going to be coming very soon. Officially though, we have no information on what his banner is going to look like. We have no idea how the format is necessarily going to look, if it's going to be different or anything, but we do have some ideas based on previous history that can kind of like give us an idea what to look forward to. So I'll go ahead and talk about that in just a sec. But first of all, when it comes to Pikkon, so I broke down his entire kit in really good detail in my previous vid. I recommend you guys check that out for a proper breakdown and understanding of how Pikkon works as a unit. But basically, Pikkon as an LR has two different kind of styles to him. So his base form right here is more so oriented to being a support type of unit, where you see right here, he can give key and support to stats to his allies provided a certain condition is met. He also has orb changing in general, so that's on both sides of his kit and everything. And for right here with the second slot kind of passer right here, for the, like 2 turns with the second slot condition being met, he will give additional damage reduction for other World Warriors or tournament participants' allies. So that's his kind of design in his base form. He's a slot 2, slot 3 character. In his kind of active transformation mode, where basically, as the game describes it, he gets serious, he becomes more of an individual kind of player, where he no longer is focused on supporting his allies. He still does the orb changing, but really, he's more so in it for himself. He's really focused on what he can do with his stats and everything that he is capable of individually. So Pikkon is a very interesting character, honestly a very dynamic character. If you look at Pikkon, like just on Twitter and everything, you'll see a lot of people are fans of Pikkon and how he seems fun to use, how he seems pretty strong. I will say, me personally, I think a lot of people will agree, LR Pikkon is not on the same level of gravity and magnitude as Cellmax from last year. If you guys remember Cellmax, he wasn't exactly the one-to-one release in terms of timing, but Cellmax in terms of gravitas and like meaning and impact, Cellmax was insane. He was a yellow coin LR fighting for top 10 LR positions. Pikkon, I don't know if he will necessarily have that kind of case being made. Maybe it's possible, but I just don't think he's on the same level as Cellmax in terms of the timing of the release and everything. But Pikkon is still very strong, so don't get it twisted. A lot of people are excited about Pikkon just coming into the game. Truth is excited. A lot of people are making jokes about LR Kid Buu and stuff, so that does suck, but it is what it is. But yeah, Pikkon, when you see people like Truth and all sorts of people just enjoying the idea of Pikkon coming in the game, seeing what he can do with his kit and everything, that's how you know Pikkon is going to be a fun character. Dokkan Twitter will hate Pikkon, but actually I will say, I haven't seen a lot of hate from Dokkan Twitter or in general for Pikkon. A lot of people enjoy Pikkon. A lot of people understand Pikkon is not going to be the most hype character, the most insane character, but he's going to be still a very nice, fun character nonetheless. So, understand when it comes to Pikkon exclusively, like if you're someone who's like, hey, I'm a big Pikkon fan and I want someone for Pikkon, you guys are going to be eating good because Pikkon himself looks pretty good. So in and of itself, just make sure that that's the understanding we have here. Again, I don't want to break it down too much because I want to save that for like the vid I actually focused on it for, but Pikkon as an individual character seems really good, to say the least. We'll see how he performs, but he does seem really good. Something also I want to kind of point out here, because this is something I mentioned in my last vid, but I didn't know how it would break down. Pikkon, interestingly enough, so the way he works is in his base form. This is something I really do want to kind of focus on as far as like a proper kit breakdown. In his base form, because of the way his naming is set up, right, just Pikkon, he is not able to link with characters like the AGL Pikkons and the Dokkan Fest and whatnot. However, when you go into his serious mode, right, when you go ahead and do the active and transform him, his transform mode, even though it has the same name being Pikkon, it still allows him to link with the AGL Pikkon, with himself. So that is one of those things where it could be very interesting, because with the serious mode, that will let him link with AGL Pikkon and any other Pikkon you may have. All of a sudden, you can have a rotation of all Pikkons, and that could actually maybe arguably work. So it's kind of like a weird thing that's happening there, but that's actually a really cool thing that I just saw with the data download, so I want to mention that before I forget. So really, really cool stuff right there. Okay, so we got the schedule, we talked about Pikkon individually. The question is, how is this banner going to look? So again, we don't have any official information through the data downloads and whatnot as far as what his banner is going to offer. We don't know the characters that are going to be included, all that sort of stuff. We do know, however, based on previous kind of experiences, what his banner ought to look like, because again, Pikkon is a yellow coin LR. Now, he's the first yellow coin LR to boast a 200% lead for 2 different categories, but he is still technically a yellow coin LR nonetheless. So, you know, if we go back in like previous yellow coin banners, this was the yellow coin banner for last mid-April, right, for the Captain Ginyu, the Part 2 LR for special pose last April. This month is obviously focused on tournament participants, so Pikkon is kind of taking this slot right here. So, based off this logic, right, what we can tell is the banner is probably going to feature a pity system, so 200 coins for a guaranteed copy of the character, so that's going to be something right there to look forward to. Obviously, with the featured, like, SSRs and everything, you're going to see the new LR, which is Pikkon in our case. You'll see 2 other, you know, yellow coin LRs, and then you'll see a bunch of random, arguably pretty much trash, you know, banner units and whatnot. Like, for example, you know, last year, right, you know, Rikuman Guldo, you know, Jason Birder, they are not that good last year. Even this year, they're obviously a lot worse. We need to wait for their sub-EZAs and stuff, but, you know, like, they're not it, Beer's not it, so, you know, the yellow coin banner format is probably going to be most likely very bad. Now, Pikkon is going to be there. The question is, who are going to be the 2 other, you know, yellow coin LRs? The yellow coin LRs are going to be important to kind of consider, and obviously for Pikkon, there's some options. Like, when we look at Pikkon specific categories, Otherworld Warriors, you know, there is one yellow coin LR that you could argue being there, which could be the Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta. I don't know if he will necessarily show up, to be honest, but he is an option there that would technically fit, so just know that there. For Saviors, you got some yellow coin LR options. You got Gohan and Piccolo. You got, for example, the AGL Ultimate Gohan, so you got characters like them. You got Goku and Piccolo, so understand there are options. Of course, you got, you know, Super Saiyan Trunks right here. There are definitely options. But realistically, it's hard to say who these, you know, other remaining LRs are going to be. My expectation is one of them could be Gohan and Piccolo, because I think it would make sense. It would kind of work out. Technically, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Piccolo should link well with Pikkon, so that could be a pretty good option there. And then I guess the other thing to consider is, you know, other options like tournament participants, where, you know, tournament participants, you know, Worldwide Chaos, all those things, that could include other characters like, for example, Bojack. Bojack is technically a tournament participants character. He would fit into the whole kind of meta and theme of the month and everything, so he could be there. Brienne and, like, the Universe 2 girls right there, they could be a part of it, so, you know, there are a lot of different options, but understand, you know, your LRs, your potential featured LRs, apart from Pikkon, they're probably not going to be that great, most likely. Now, they could change the format. This is the thing that I don't think a lot of people are really discussing, but it is a possibility, is they could change the format of these yellow coin banners to be a much more desirable kind of setup. And the reason why this idea is starting to pop up to me personally is because of the fact that Pikkon himself has basically, he's become the first yellow coin LR to become an original Carnival LR. In fact, he's better than Carnival LRs from back in the day, because he's a 200% lead for 2 different categories. Even AGL LR Jiren last year, right? He led 2 different categories, but Universe 11 and Universe Survival Saga were both having a lot of overlap between the 2, so it wasn't exactly the same as what we see here. For Otherworld Warriors and Saviors, those are categories that, yes, maybe some characters fit overlapping and everything, but other than that, most of it is quite different. So, you know, it is kind of like 2 different categories, really. So, you know, if Pikkon is so different, there is a good possibility that, you know, we could argue, hey, maybe the yellow coin LR banner will be a lot better this time around. Maybe it'll feature some really old Carnival LRs. Maybe it'll just feature more LRs. We have no clue for sure, but assuming it is like this, I will say right now, this banner is not going to be it in terms of value. Now, I understand if you're a Pikkon fan, if you're someone who likes Pikkon so much, you're like, hey, I want to go ahead and pull for Pikkon, Pikkon's my GOAT. If you're someone who just has a bunch of Dragonstones, you're like, hey, you know what, I make paper, I'm going to go ahead and just spend Dragonstones and have some fun. You can do those things. You can obviously summon for Pikkon and have at it, have some fun. But, you know, in terms of the quality of the banner, until further notice, we have to assume that even though there are possibilities down the line, right now it's probably going to end up similar to this. And if it's going to be the same thing as this type of format from last year, then this banner is going to be pretty crap. It's going to be pretty shit, and realistically, despite how Pikkon will be pretty good, the fact of the matter is his banner will not be good enough to justify the risks of summoning for Pikkon, especially considering the fact that Golden Week is going to be coming in about 2 weeks from now, and in 2 weeks, Golden Week is going to feature 2 really dope characters, most likely, 2 really good banners in terms of qualities and characters and everything, so all those things have to be considered, EZAs. You probably want to save your stones and your time and your energy and everything for Golden Week celebration in that, like, near close period of time, right? So that's what I'll say right there. Obviously, if we look at some of the other kind of previous Carnival / Yellow Coin LR banners, right? So like the 10th anniversary, this was the part 1 banner. This had a bunch of Carnival LRs, but also it included Yellow Coin LRs for, you know, the Saiyan Saga Vegeta, for Janemba, and Gohan and Krillin. You know, the other banner, the part 2 banner, of course, that had some other kind of opposites, right? Of course, so you had like Kaioken Goku, you had Namek Vegeta, and you had the Super Easy Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. So there were some Yellow Coin LRs here. Realistically, I mean, it's probably safe to assume that half of these LRs will not even be considered for options. Gohan technically is a tournament participant, so in theory, he could show up once again, being part of the theme of the month and everything, but beyond that, it is probably unlikely to see him. You're probably not going to see a lot of these other characters. So, you know, these multiple like Yellow Coin LRs, they're probably going to be out of the picture in that sense. So just kind of understand that, of course. If we look at the New Year's banner, right? So this was the New Year's banner from last year, right? So like the end of the year and everything. It had a lot of different Carnival and Yellow Coin LRs. Obviously, you had like Carnival LRs like Jiren and such, Omega Shenron, but also Yellow Coin LRs like Ginyu, like Gohan, like Cell Max, Ribrianne and them, Super Buu. So a lot of different options. Realistically, if you look at this banner, there are some really interesting choices they could pull for the banner. Probably some crappy choices to be said as well, but like Kale and Caulifla could technically fit being tournament participants characters. You know, UI Goku, for example. You could take Jiren, I guess. You know, you could bring characters like them. You could arguably throw in like maybe Goku and Gohan. I think they're probably going to show up once again because I think it does kind of fit into line with the Cell Saga thing, the whole tournament participants focus. Cell Max could show up, and I will say Cell Max is probably one of the better LRs to show up for the banner, but even then, Cell Max is not even close to what he was half a year ago or anything like that, right? You know, going back to before 2025 began with the 10th anniversary, Cell Max was a very powerful, very good character for like some specific teams. Now, Cell Max's value has significantly dropped because so many different teams have shot up since then, so many different characters have come out with better values, so understand a lot of the older characters are unfortunately not going to be the same as they once were, and if you're thinking, hey, you know, Cell Max may return, it's been a long time coming, if he comes back, I'll go in and pull him. Yes, you could get Cell Max, and he could have some good value for you, but more than likely, he's not going to be at the level that you wanted to see him perform, given what you probably saw from him, you know, months ago. So those are all kind of things I want to clarify. Again, the banner will drop in basically about 10 hours, but until then, we don't have any official information on what the banner is going to include. We're kind of just speculating here, but we can make some pretty good educated guesses and hypotheses and whatnot, you know, theories. We can come to some pretty good conclusions, I think, based off what we do know. Now, the last thing I kind of want to talk about, you know, obviously, you know, his kind of relation to Pikkon. Obviously, we talked about his link and everything. We talked about that sort of stuff. In my last vid, I did talk about how he will kind of pair up with Cell. I will kind of reiterate those points right now. The fact that he can link with his active transformation with the AGL Pikkon, that is going to be very huge. Because Pikkon, obviously, this AGL Pikkon, he provides a lot of good support in his base level. That's going to be very helpful. You know, Pikkon in general is a dodge type of character, so that's going to be pretty good. Working with the physical Pikkon, you can see some nice things there. Cell, I think this is the big question for a lot of people, is how he will work with Cell. Is he going to lift Cell and make Cell better, or is Cell going to be just kind of thrown to the wayside because there's so many other options? Really, it's going to be hard to tell, but one thing we know for sure is something is going to happen between Cell and Pikkon. Cell, of course, covers tournament participants. Pikkon fits into tournament participants, so realistically, there is a way to kind of pair the two together. Pikkon, of course, does provide support in his base form to all allies, so that is not discriminate of superclass or extreme class characters, so Cell can benefit from this. I am personally not convinced that this and the damage reduction here is enough to make Cell what a lot of people hope that Cell would become, but at the same time, it is still going to help Cell at least slightly. So, you know, I do hold out hope for Cell. I know I made a rant vid talking about how Cell sucks ass, and I still stand by that. I stand by that to this day. But Cell, you know, if we're talking about Cell, he's going to get better over time. He has the opportunities, he has the categories to fit into that just could allow Cell to become a lot better in value. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, looking at Pikkon and what he has to offer, as an individual unit, he looks so good. He looks so cool, so fun, really. But it's just the fact that, realistically, we probably will not benefit from summoning on his banner with the Golden Week Celebration coming very soon. Now, I will say, you know, I didn't really talk about the Golden Week Celebration too much in specificity, but with the Golden Week Celebration, we know it's going to happen April 27th or April 28th at the latest. We know that it's going to probably feature two, like, you know, Dokkan Fest Premier TU Wars, probably two banners side by side, you know, buy three, get ones. Part 2 will exist with an LR most likely, so we know those things will happen. We should be expecting a Super Easy Day because it has been a while since we got a last Super Easy Day. So we know those things will happen. What we do not know is the theme. But realistically, the Golden Week celebration is one of the 5 biggest celebrations in Dokkan, like as far as I'm concerned, within a year, right? You know, the 5 big celebrations, you're talking about the anniversary, you're talking about Worldwide Celebration, Tanabata, not Worldwide, but Golden Week celebration, and then also probably Saiyan Day celebration. So we just got through Saiyan Day celebration. That was kind of hit or miss for a lot of people. Now Golden Week, a lot of people are kind of eyeing Golden Week saying, hey, you know, Daima is an option. Namek is an option. There are some really good themes that could come for Golden Week celebration. Why not go ahead and go all out? So, you know, while we don't know what the theme is, there is a very good way to safely assume that the Golden Week celebration will be a really big banger, especially because when you think about it, ever since the 10th anniversary, which kind of ended technically on like middle of March, right, going to the Saiyan Day celebration, since the 10th anniversary, things have been kind of on the downturn for a lot of people. A lot of people have been kind of mad at Dokkan in terms of how bad they've been performing for some of these releases. Now, Golden Week is kind of that opportunity to kind of pick things back up. So, you know, when you think about all those different things, when you think about the fact that Golden Week is going to probably be pretty hype in general, not to mention all the extra added stakes behind it, when you think about the fact that we're still missing a lot of really big Daima characters specifically, if not including, you know, Namek and other stuff, there is a very good likelihood that Golden Week is going to be a fantastic banger this time around. And with that being in mind, I will say, me personally, I'm skipping Pikkon. Now, to be fair, I'm not the biggest Pikkon fan, so it makes it a bit easier for me. But knowing how good Pikkon is and everything, that does hurt. I will still stand by skipping Pikkon and saving for the Golden Week celebration. That is what I recommend to a lot of players in general. If you still want to summon for Pikkon because you have the stones to afford it, or you just want to summon for Pikkon because he's your favorite character or something close to that, by all means have at it, have some fun, enjoy the game of course, and enjoy your time. But me personally, if I'm giving like a general suggestion, I would say right now, you probably want to skip Pikkon, you probably want to skip his banner, you know, assume his banner is going to be pretty bad. His banner may be a lot better than what we're talking about, hopefully, but until then, we have to assume it's going to be pretty bad. We have to assume it's going to be like Ginyu's banner from last year, which means it is going to be a banner that is not worth your time and not worth your stones. So, there you go. We talked about Pikkon's banner. We talked about the potential of summoning for him, everything. Obviously, you know, we're still left in the dark about a lot of major things like Golden Week Celebration and how his banner is actually going to look and stuff. But we do know that Pikkon will be dropping later tonight. We do know what Pikkon is capable of. Again, I broke it down in a separate vid, so check that out if you want the full breakdown. We do know some things at the bare minimum. We can guess what we could see for the banners and stuff, so we're not going in entirely blind. So, you know, with that being said, there is still some room for, like, you know, unknowns and stuff, but I think we're pretty safe to assume that Pikkon, even though he's really good, probably not a banner that you want to summon on in the grand scheme of things. But let me know what you plan to do in the comments down below. Again, are you planning to summon for Pikkon, or are you planning to skip for the Golden Week celebration or something else down the line? If you guys enjoyed the vid, be sure to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, show your support. Thank you all so much for watching, take care, stay blessed, and I will see you all in the next one.